Hello students, today's topic of discussion is animation. First let us begin with the introduction. What exactly do we mean by animation? To animate is literally to give life to anything for that matter. Animating is moving something which cannot move itself. That means an object which cannot move on its own, we try to create some movement in it. That is called as animation for us. Animation adds to graphics the dimension of time, which vastly increases the amount of information which can be transmitted. Basically, when we speak of computer animation, it generally refers to any time sequence of visual changes in a picture. That means whenever a change occurs in a picture, we keep track of what time the change occurred in its visual appearance. That we refer to as the computer animation. In addition to changing the object's position using translations or rotations, a computer-generated animation could display time variations in object size, color, transparency, or the surface texture. Let us look at the two basic methods for constructing a motion sequence. They are the first one, the real-time animation. What exactly is the real-time animation for us? In a real-time computer animation, each stage of the sequence is viewed as it is created. That we call it as the real-time animation. Thus, the animation must be generated at a rate that is compatible with the constraints of the refresh rate here. The next of its kind is frame by frame animation. For a frame by frame animation, each frame of the motion is separately generated and then it is stored. Later, the frames can be recorded on film or they can be displayed consecutively on a video monitor in real-time playback mode. So if at all you are storing it somewhere, let's say in the form of a film, wherein you can play it back at any point of time, then we call it as a frame by frame animation. Moving further, let us see the raster methods for computer animation. What exactly is the raster method for computer animation? If you recall, we had discussed two types of graphics representation. One is the raster method, the other one is the random method. And if I'm right, we said that most of the animations that we are doing are basically on a raster system. So here we are discussing the computer animation methods for a raster system. Using a raster method, we can create simple animation sequence in our program using real-time methods. We can also produce an animation sequence on a raster scan system, one frame at a time, so that each completed frame can be saved in a file for later viewing. The animation can then be viewed by cycling through the completed frame sequence, or you can also use it by transferring it to a film. If you want to generate an animation in real time, we need to produce the motion frames quickly enough so that a continuous motion sequence is displayed. That means the creation of that animation should be, the frames should be so quick that when you display it, it should be represented as a continuous frame. I think the best method that I can give you is a movie. They're all scene by scene, but at the end, when we look at a movie, we do not see the difference from one scene to the another scene. It's continuous for us when we are watching a movie. Because the screen display is generated from successively modified pixel values here, the refresh buffer, pixel values in the refresh buffer here, we can take advantage of some of the characteristics of the raster scan refresh process. And what is that? It is to produce motion sequences quickly. So these are the important points that are associated with our raster method. When it comes to raster method, usually in order to get all our tasks done, we make use of double buffering, and we also look at generating animations using the raster operations. First, let us start with understanding what this double buffering is. Now we are speaking about generating the real-time animations such that 2 frames does not have any time gap. It should look like a single sequence for us. One method for producing a real-time animation with a raster system is to employ 2 refresh buffers instead of 1. So that we call as double buffering. Here we create a frame for the animation in one of the buffers. Then while the screen is being refreshed from that buffer, we construct the next frame in the other buffer. That means we are constructing the first buffer while the screen is being refreshed in that buffer. Then we move on to the creation of the frame in the next buffer, such that we don't have to waste our time and add in a time delay between the creation of the 2 scenes for us. When the frame is complete, we switch the roles of the 2 buffers so that the refresh routines use the second buffer during the process of creating the next frame in the first buffer. So this process is continuous until you finish the construction of all the scenes. When a call is made to switch 2 refresh buffers, the interchange could be performed at various times. We cannot say each of them has a given time restriction. That means the scene of the first one may take a larger time when compared to the second one. So I would say that here the interchange would be performed at various times for us. The most straightforward implementation is to switch the 2 buffers at the end of the current refresh cycle. That means when you reach the end of the first buffer, then switch to the next one. That is during the vertical retrace of the electronic beam. If you remember, in a raster scan, the electron beam moves from the leftmost corner of the window towards the right. When it is moving in the reverse order, it does not perform any task for us, because it has to start in the second column or the second row from the first column itself, and then start scanning it from left to right. So when it is retracing, and that is the best time for the refresh cycle to occur. If a program can complete the construction of a frame within the time of a refresh cycle, say which is 1/60th of a second, each motion sequence is displayed in synchronization with the screen refresh rate. If the time to construct a frame is longer than the refresh time, the current frame is displayed for 2 or more refresh cycles while the next animation frame is being generated. Similarly, if the frame construction time is 1/25th of a second, the animation frame rate is reduced to 20 frames. Take note here. If it is 1/60, then the rate is different. And if it is 1/25th, then again the frame rate is reduced to different frames per second, because each frame is displayed here 3 times. Irregular animation frame rates can occur with double buffering when the frame construction time is very nearly equal to an integer multiple of the screen refresh time. The animation frame rate can change abruptly and erratically. One way to compensate for this effect is to add a small time delay to the program. Another possibility is to alter the motion or scene description to shorten the frame construction time, because we have irregular animation frame rates. In order to see that they work in sync and properly, the best way is to add a small time delay, otherwise alter the motion or scene description to shorten the frame construction time. Now let us look at generating animations using the raster operations. Here we can generate real-time raster animations for limited applications using block transfer of a rectangular array of pixel values. A simple method for translating an object from one location to another in the XY plane is to transfer the group of pixel values that define the shape of the object to the new location. That means you make a group of pixel and then transfer them in the group. Sequence of raster operations can be executed to produce real-time animation for either two-dimensional or three-dimensional objects, as long as we restrict the animation to the motions in the projection plane. Then no viewing or visible surface algorithm be used, and we can also animate objects along two-dimensional motion paths using color table transformation. So what we are trying to say here is, in order to generate animations, you can create it for limited applications using the block transfer, or you can make use of the color table transformation. Both of them holds good for the generation of the animation. If at all you're making use of this color table transformation, then here we predefine the object at successive position along the motion path and then set the successive blocks of pixel value to the color table entries. The pixel at the first position of the object are set to the foreground color, and the pixel at the other object position are set to the background color. That means you would be making use of the foreground as well as the background. Then the animation is then accomplished by changing the color table values so that the objective colors at successive position along the animation path becomes the foreground color. As we proceed further into different position, it is set to go into the background color. That means as the animation traverses, we see that it would be altering between the foreground and the background color in order to create a different kind of a illumination or a representation for us. Next, we see how to design the animation sequence, or what are the steps that we follow during the animation. The first one is the story-based layout. The second one is the object definitions. The third one is the keyframe specification. And fourth being the generation of in-between frames. This approach of carrying out animations is applied to any other applications as well. Although some applications are exceptional cases and do not follow this sequence. Pretty much most of the animation follow the same sequence. However, there are few which may not stick on to this set of steps. For frame by frame animation, every frame of the display or scene is generated separately and stored. Later, the frame recording can be done and then they might be displayed consecutively in terms of a movie. The outline of the action is storyboard. This explains the motion sequence for us. The storyboard consists of a set of rough structures, or it could be a list of the basic ideas for the motion. For each participant in the action, an object definition is given. Objects are described in the terms of basic shapes, the examples of which are your polygons or the splines for that matter. The related movement associated with the objects are specified along with the shapes. So we know what exactly is the storyboard, which gives us the rough structure. Then we saw what is object definition. We said every participant in the action is given a definition based on their size or shape, or rather I would say based on their shape. Next comes the keyframe specification for us. A keyframe in animation can be defined as a detailed drawing of the scene at a certain time in the animation sequence. It is nothing but a detailed drawing of the scene. Each object is positioned according to the time for the frame with each keyframe. Some keyframes are selected at extreme positions and the others are placed so that the time interval between two consecutive keyframes is not large. Greater number of keyframes are specified for smooth motions than for slow and varying motions. And the intermediate frames between the keyframes and in between frames add the media that we use determines the number of in-betweens which are required to display the animation. A film needs 24 frames per second and graphic terminals are refreshed at the rate of 30 to 60 frames per second. Depending on the speed specified for the motion, some keyframes are duplicated. For a minute film sequence with no duplication, we would require 288 keyframes. We place the keyframes a bit distant if the motion is not too complicated. A number of other tasks that can be carried out depending upon the application requirements. For example, synchronization of the soundtrack. That is the different types of tasks that you can carry out depending on what type of application you are using. So we have 4 steps here. First one is the storyboard, which is nothing but the rough structure. Second one is the object definition. It is nothing but a detailed description based on the shape of the participant. A keyframe, which gives us a detailed drawing of the scene, and then comes the in-between frames for us, which are nothing but the graphics which is generated in between one frame to another. Yes, next. Let us move on to understand the traditional animation techniques. So far, we have discussed the design of animation sequence. That means the steps required for the creation of or designing an animation. Now we are looking at the traditional animation techniques. Basically, if I talk about the film animators, they use a variety of methods for depicting and emphasizing motion sequences. These include object deformation, spacing between animation frames, motion anticipation, and follow through and action focusing. These are the different things that are added as a part of an object. One of the most important techniques for simulating acceleration effects, particularly for non-rigid objects, is the squash and stretch. This is one of the technology or the techniques which is used for simulating acceleration effects. Here is the figure which shows this technique, which emphasizes the acceleration and the reverse of acceleration, which I call it as deceleration of a bouncing ball. Yeah, as the ball accelerates, it begins to stretch. You can see here the ball is here. As it begins to accelerate, it stretches. That means here it is round in shape, whereas when it is coming here, I would say it has changed into a sphere or an ellipse for us. So it is stretched out. When the ball hits the floor, it is first compressed. That means it is squashed and then stretched. We can see that it is stretched out here again. Later, it is then stretched again as it accelerates and bounces upwards. That means when I hit a ball on the ground, first it moves in the downward direction and then it comes up for us. If you can see, the ball initially, as it accelerates, changes its shape, then it squashes. That means it is changing its direction, and then further again goes back into the same direction and then moves up and takes its original form. This technique, we call it as the squash and stretch. Another technique which is used by the film animators is timing, which refers to the spacing between the motion frames. Here, the spacing between the motion frames. A slower moving object is represented with more closely spaced frames, and a faster moving object is displayed with fewer frames over the path of the motion. Object movement can also be emphasized by creating a preliminary action that indicates an anticipation of the coming motion. However, instead of saying anticipation, I would just say the two main techniques that are adopted by our filmmakers or the film animators is the squash and stretch and the timing technique. Yes, moving further, now let us look at the different OpenGL animation procedures, or what we call as the OpenGL animation functions. So here I've made a list of the different functions. Let us just visit each of them and see what exactly they do. The first one here, I'll start with this portion where I've written it as glut double. The indication is that double buffering options or operations, if available, are activated using the following glut command. That means if at all I need two buffers, we just said that basically when we are using animations, it's always better to make use of two buffers so that the frames can shift from one buffer to another buffer. In order to do so, we make use of the function glut init display mode with the argument glut double. This provides two buffers for us called the front buffer and the back buffer that we can use alternatively to refresh the screen display. We specify when the roles of two buffers are to be interchanged. We said that we are making use of two buffers. Now we need to say when they need to interchange. In order to do so, we use the function glut swap buffers. This enables the swapping between the two buffers, that is your front buffer and the swap buffers. Next, to determine whether double buffer operations are available on a system, we can issue the following query. Which is that query here? We say GL get boolean v stands for vector here, GL double buffer comma status. So what are we trying to see here? We are trying to determine whether double buffering operations are available on our system or not. We are inquiring or we are getting the status. We are issuing an query here. So here a value of GL true is returned to array parameter status. This is an array parameter, and GL true is returned if both the front and the back buffers are available on a system. Otherwise, the return value is GL false. That means this status holds either GL true, that is all in uppercase, that is GL underscore true in uppercase, and GL underscore false again in uppercase, which is the status. True if both the buffers are present, false if it is absent. Now, For a continuous animation, we could also use glut idle function. This procedure is continuously executed when there are no display window events that must be processed. That means this function is executed continuously when there are no other events to be processed. In order to disable the glut idle function, we set its argument to the value null or the value. That means a value with opening and closing bracket in the form of a function. So this will disable the glut idle function for us. And this idle function is a callback function basically, which we use in order to generate the continuous animation. And here I have a call, which basically we have to define in to say what are the sequence of actions that should be present within this user defined function. So this is all we have in relation to animation. Basically, we have referred to few of the topics in theoretical pretty much, not in practicality. The different things that we have discussed are what is animation or what exactly animation means to us. It's two types: the raster method of computer animation, design of animation sequence, the traditional animation techniques, and finally concluding it with the OpenGL animation procedures. Thank you for learning.